Hello, this is Gary Scarano, and I'm here with Dr. Surajit Khanna on our continuing series of the U.S. Constitution. And we have been talking specifically about the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are the 10 First Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And Dr. Khanna and I have already reviewed the 6 tenets of the First Amendment, what has to do with freedom of speech, freedom of religion. However, we're going to now tackle a very difficult amendment, the Second Amendment, which has been very contentious. And let me just share with you all what the Second Amendment is, the wording. I think that's important to understand. Isn't that correct, Dr. Khanna?
That's right. Well, thank you for having both of us talking about the Second Amendment, which we feel that the US population needs to really not only know what the Constitution is, but how we can simplify it so that they can understand their rights. And I think we did a great job in the First Amendment. But the Second Amendment, which everybody can see on the screen, it is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Two parts of this Second Amendment. One is regulated militia. And this is something which, Gary, you are good in describing. What is the history, or what does militia means to normal people? What do they need to understand that a well-regulated militia?
Regulated militia was intended because of the different states feeling that they were going to be overrun by the federal government. But also the federal government wanted to make sure that they had the ability for a regulated militia to make sure that the individuals in that state had the right to vote and had the right to bear arms. And this included the African-American community after the Civil War. So a well-regulated militia means regulated by who? Well, it's supposed to be regulated by the state. And the militia is simply a group of people able and legally able to bear arms. So what happened, that is supposed to be necessary to secure a free state. What has happened through the years, through 3 different very key Supreme Court rulings, is that basically has been gutted in the present day situation. There really is no well-regulated militia today. People point to, and states and government point to, the National Guard as having that capability, which is basically gutted and got rid of the issue of a regulated militia. So from the 70s to today, the issue of the Second Amendment really concentrating on the individual's right to bear arms. Dr. Khanna?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what the regulated militia means. And we just need to understand and explain a little bit about the history, how it came up.
Well, the right to bear arms, which has been basically a new issue, changed because the government was trying to restrict the ability of individuals to have guns. Traditionally, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, was concentrating on recreation, gun training, hunting. However, in the 70s, it changed since the government was trying to restrict people from having guns to protecting individuals' rights to bear arms. So it shall not be infringed. But it became a complicated issue. The issue that's never really been resolved is, well, what kind of guns, what magazines, what kind of weapons? It's been very complicated through the courts to define this, and each state defines it separately. Is that correct, Dr. Khanna?
That's correct. That's exactly what the security of a free state means and what this right of the people to keep the bear arms supposed to mean. But as we all know today, it has been misused a lot by both the parties. By both the parties means both the government and the individuals. So this is something which needs to be understood by the local people, that the purpose of this was to protect ourselves from the federal attack, from not being infringed. So, but we can't afford to have different type of guns, machine guns, or any type of, nowadays even like drone has weapons. And that can be also stated, and people are trying to interpret that that is part of the Second Amendment we can have to protect ourselves in the house. No, this is something has to be well regulated and looked into it. But again, this is something that state needs to administer that, because we are not being attacked by the federal government to the state. It is our own self-defense protection to have guns or not, because we are not in a civil war. We are not attacking things. Like you said the other time, that National Guard is enough for federal protection that can give it to the state. I don't think so. Because every state should have its own protection arm giving their citizens, because every state has its own constitution. Okay, if every state has its own constitution, so the right of bearing these arms should be properly monitored. Who is having, why they're having, because we don't want these guns to be in any psycho's hand. Then we all will be that, like, which we are seeing today in a lot of school shooting, a lot of college shooting, a lot of public, arenas shooting going on. It's not correct. We got to some or other control this, but at the same token, we don't want to take the rights that individual has.
So initially, the whole purpose of bearing arms was to protect the individual from the government. Now the change has been, well, you need guns for self-preservation, for self-defense. And that's really where the argument's going. And very different states manage it in different ways, but they shall not infringe upon individuals' rights to bear arms. The bottom, that's still in effect today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, maybe we can have a little more discussion on the shall not be infringed, that in the next session, and we can elaborate that and see how we can simplify it so that the citizens can understand their right and protect it.
Thank you, Dr. Khanna. Please join us at Khanna for USSupremeCourt.com. That's KHANNA for USSupremeCourt.com. Our videos there, our podcasts are there. And we thank you, and we'll see you next time.